how are you in pandemic world? Let's start with like people first. How are you?
I'm doing great. I just got my first dose of vaccine yesterday, but I'm feeling great.
Good.
So that means it's going to hit me in the second dose.
I hope that's what the math is because I got pretty beat up with the first dose and I'm getting my second one soon. And I'm like, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to feel that.
Yeah, from what I've heard, like if it hits you in the first dose, it doesn't hit you in the second. So I hope so. Fingers
Me
crossed.
too. And I hope it doesn't hit you too bad in the second.
I
So
hope so.
Cool, awesome. So thank you so much for sharing Crossfade with me. I'm so excited to chat with you about it. Let's start with the way I usually like to do like feedback in these kinds of circumstances is sort of 4 points. So first, I ask you some questions, so I make sure I'm giving feedback that's going to be most helpful for you. Then I like to go into things that I think are really working, things that like I had questions about or weren't quite clear to me, and then any questions you have for me. So that's sort of what I'm expecting our layout's going to be. Does that work with you?
Yeah, definitely.
Perfect. All right, so I'm going to jump into questions that I have for you.
Mhm.
First, contextualize this for me. So, of course, we heard the log line, but contextualize. So, what I read was 7 pages and it was titled as a proof of concept. Is this a short that you're looking to shoot yourself, in terms of the proof of concept piece of it? Is it already a longer piece that you took a section of? Like, just kind of help contextualize the pages that I read.
Mhm. It's actually a feature film, kind of like the indie sci-fi film Coherence.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So it's about a girl who is not happy with her life because she lost her girlfriend, and she notices that her girlfriend is actually alive in one of the parallel universes and
Mm-hmm.
asks the help of her crazy scientist aunt to go to pass to that universe, and she
Mm-hmm.
ends up kicking her better self out of that universe and takes over the life of her better self. Then she realizes that because of this girlfriend situation, the antagonistic self is actually trying to kill all her doubles that is responsible for her losing her girlfriend.
So Skylar is the protagonist in this,
Mhm.
and Rose is the antagonist.
Rose is the side character.
Okay, so we don't meet the antagonist in the pages that I
Yeah.
saw. Okay,
Yes,
okay,
it's
cool.
the evil Skylar in the end who smashes like
Got you.
yeah.
So, so if this is a section of it, where in the feature is this section that I read? Like, or is it piecemeal from different sections in the film?
Yes, I pieced it myself. So it's from when Skylar goes in, and then towards act two, like I
Mm-hmm.
think at act two break, Rose finds a like way to come back to her own universe. So I kind of pieced them together, and
Mm-hmm.
then I took the antagonist and put her in the proof of concept too. So it's like act one, act two, act three smash.
Got you. Okay. Okay. That's super interesting. Okay. And what draft of the full length is this for
This
you?
is eighth draft.
Good for you. Awesome. And then in you piecing together this proof of concept, what draft is it for you?
Mm, this is probably 12th.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you
Yeah.
spent more time
Mhm.
recrafting this proof of concept. Okay, great.
Mhm. I love rewriting, so I keep
Me
rewriting.
too.
Yeah.
It's my favorite part of the process. I know most people are like, I don't want to. I'm like, that's when the fun happens. I'm right there
Yeah,
with
I
you. That's
agree.
awesome. Um, what are you still talking about the script itself with the proof of concept? So I'm going to specifically hone in on the pages that I read, because I did not read the full length yet. What is the what are you expecting to do with the script itself? Like, is it something that you're expecting to sort of shoot yourself, to direct yourself? Is it something that you're looking to send out as a submission to festivals, or to producers, or to pursue represent, like what like the actual pages, what are you expecting or hoping to do with them?
I want this to be produced at some point when it's like all ready to go, and I want someone else to direct it. Uh, Hopefully, someone who is like very interested in sci fi, just like me.
Awesome.
yeah, I want it to be like a part of Get It Made.
Great. And with the idea that it is shot as a proof of concept in order to potentially get your feature made, right? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Awesome. And then what are you looking to say with the project?
Um, that we have to follow our dreams no matter what. Like things happen in life, like Skylar lost her girlfriend, but it's okay. We just gotta move on and we just gotta do our thing, follow our dreams. Because in feature film, we learned that Skylar is an engineer who
Mm.
once wanted to be a photographer.
Mhm.
And I used to be an engineer and I
I
wanted to be a
know.
writer.
Yeah, I know. You have degrees in chemical engineering, right? And like
Yeah,
that's amazing. That's so amazing.
thank you. I don't know how I did it because
Because
I
you're
always
crazy
wanted to.
smart. That's
Yeah.
why. Very cool. Awesome. Cool. That helps me contextualize a little better and
Mhm,
be able to offer some thoughts. Um, cool. So let me start with the things that I think are currently working.
okay.
I think that especially given that you want to shoot the proof of concepts, as a writer producer, even to have somebody else direct, but you're gonna, on some in some capacity have to be a producer on it. I think it
Mhm,
was super smart to keep it to two characters in one location.
mhm,
That's like indie producing gold. So that was super like you're already ahead of the game. Sometimes I read well, I mean two locations, I guess, technically, if you account for the like evil Skylar stuff. But like, I'll read like a short that somebody wants to do indie style and it's got like 40 locations. And like this is when the spaceship comes in. It's like, yeah. So I thought that was really savvy on your part. I really thought Skylar was a fun character. I thought she had some very just from the beginning, like, sort of the mystery around her and her sort of as our protagonist, I think she's like a very fun character for us to follow in the 7 pages that I read, but then I can imagine also, in this the feature length version, of the script.
mhm.
So that's we always want the protagonist to be fun because we want people to get on her side, right? We want people to like get on the ride and ride it out with her. So that's fun. I thought it was really smart to have because the characters are like doppelgangers of each other. I thought it was smart to have them have different accents. And I know that seems like such a small thing, but I thought that was like smart screenwriting. Because it really will help us. I'm imagining when you cast this, you're gonna need to cast actors who on some level resemble-ish each other, and to have um a sort of a dialect or an accent difference. I think that works in your favor in terms of like helping to sort of like in this short piece for us to know sort of where we are and who we're with. And it's so interesting when I asked you like how did you piece it together? You're
Mhm.
like, I pieced this part from act one, this piece from act two, this piece from act three. And like literally my note says, you kept the 3 act structure that most people understand in this script. Like literally that's what my notes say. So I'm like, yep, I totally saw that. It was totally 3 acts, like right there. So, and in this business, that's a structure that most people understand and follow, and especially in the feature space. And so I thought that that was the structure of it, I think is in service of you and telling the story.
That's
Cool.
amazing. Thank you.
Any questions so far from you?
No.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we're gonna jump into some things that like I had questions about or maybe kind of bumped me or what have you. My goal in giving any thoughts is to help support the story you're trying to tell. So if any way I'm saying something that you're like, this is not about marshmallows, Chandra. That's not what this story is about. Please feel free to disregard that. You know what I mean? Like take what works for you and leave behind the things that don't. But my goal is 100% to support the story you're trying to tell and to help you tell it in the most compelling way possible, even in 7 pages. Cool.
Mhm.
Awesome. And so I don't know what you were told about me, but just very quickly, I am a writer. I write in television primarily, have a background in writing for theater and feature film. digital sketch as well. I come from an actor background, so have performed in everything from literally primetime episodic shows that you know and may not know, studio feature films, the whole deal. And I also work as a producer, and most of my producing has been in the indie space. So this is a world, especially short form, this is a world that I know really well. And so I'm also thinking with my producer head and my actor head, even as I'm giving you writer notes. Cool.
Yes.
Awesome sauce. Okay. So, I thought that the environmental layout that you give us at the top is lovely. Like we follow Skylar to as she's sort of discovering this house, we're discovering it with her. I thought that was lovely.
Mhm.
However, just literally, so if you were saying I'm going to shoot this myself, I would not give this note. But because you said you're going to try to use it as a pitch document in a certain sense, right? To get a director on board, potentially other producers, to recruit talent for it, the script itself. There should be some things that I think will be helpful for you to make it a compelling argument for people to come on board for it. One of those things is that we don't get into any dialogue until page 2.
Mhm.
And it feels like because there's not anything super compelling happening in the physical descriptions and the stage directions, it I found myself being like, this is now 2 pages of screen time and I don't know what's happening and it's not crazy compelling and no one's spoken. And I think thinking ahead, I think for, for screen, people who are going to be screening it later when it's edited and what have you, I think it's going to be helpful for you to try to get some dialogue on
Mhm.
page 1.
Okay.
Is that resonating with you?
Yes, definitely. I've been trying to find ways to like get the dialogue going, but I couldn't find it. I was thinking like maybe Skylar can talk to herself.
That was going to be my suggestion. Literally. Because she's in a space that's unfamiliar to her, correct?
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think it's totally reasonable, the Skylar that I understood on the page, for somebody to be discovering like, what? Huh? Tut? Like she's picking up things and trying to figure it out and trying to piece the puzzle together.
Mhm.
I don't I think that will serve you well to look at that and see if that's a way to get some dialogue going as
Mhm.
soon as you can, early on, particularly because there's not something hugely physically compelling happening yet.
Yeah.
Um, cool. I would also, because it's sci-fi and the sci-fi storytelling is so saturated, and when you're doing something on the lower budget end, what you're not gonna necessarily be able to do in terms of like intense visual effects, right? Is going to be compelling storytelling. And so I think if you can find a way to have a little bit more of a dynamic start, I think it's going to help you because right now we discover somebody, she kind of could be home, she kind of could have broken in, she kind of could be at her family house, she kind of could be at her own place. And I think even something as simple as us seeing her break into the place,
Mm.
that already is a little bit more compelling than like she's already there and established in the room and we don't quite know why she's there and not anything necessarily super compelling has happened yet. Is
Mhm.
that making sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it could be literally as simple as like if we see somebody in the first frame, like climbing through a window or picking a lock, we're like, what? Like we're leaning in, like, what is happening? And then, yes, take us through the journey of her sort of figuring out where the liquor is and finding the mug and, you so on and so forth.
Mm.
Yeah. But what is a dynamic way to start? Because again, on the page, we as people who are reading it want to feel like we're being brought in, and especially considering you're wanting to use this as a proof of concept to potentially raise funds for a feature on the screen, you want it to be as compelling as possible as well.
Mhm.
Cool.
Yes.
So I bumped a little bit on like how she kind of was super cash, Skylar was super cash for a while, and then all of a sudden she like transitioned into like a ransacking
Mhm.
mode, like opening the cabinets and blah blah. and I did not understand why she made that transition that quickly.
Mhm.
That's a very simple fix. If she sees something, maybe she sees like Camilla's picture, or she hears a sound, or she realizes the clock is going against her. I
Mhm.
think anything to sort of help us, and it could be visual, understand why she ratcheted up her urgency, because right now it feels a little not, justified in sort of the journey we're on.
Mhm. I was going for her being kind of alcoholic after using losing Camilla, so that's why like she was going through it very quickly. She wants to start drinking right away. It's morning,
So then
but
maybe
maybe.
she comes in right away with that ransack energy. It's the fact that she
Mhm.
was like super cash and kind of looking around, and then it just went, you know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yes,
So she
definitely.
comes right away and is ransacking. Again, that's even more compelling than like the casual walkthrough and then the ransack.
Hmm. Definitely.
Cool. Skylar goes through the So I the visuals of the camera and so on is really fun. The like magic camera, I'll call it, the
Mhm.
yellow camera.
Mhm.
But we don't quite understand what's happening. Again, in the feature, I'm sure this is all super clear.
Mhm.
But even in the proof of concept, we need a little bit more of the story. And so it's super interesting to hear you say you sort of pulled a piece from each act, because right now, even though yes, it is a 3-act structure, I'm not entirely sure that it's sewn together just yet. And it's a hard thing to take a feature and then try to do your proof. But I would really strongly recommend that you look at your proof as its own thing. So
Mhm.
that may mean changing the dialogue, changing the circumstances. Like basically the proof of concepts is to sell people on the idea of the thing. And so if the dialogue is different, if the characters are a little different, that's all fine, because you're just trying to give people a taste so that they will fund and be interested in supporting the feature. So I would take a look, if I were in your chair, I would take a look at how do you sort of sew the pieces together. So for example, when Rose comes in, like there's a stranger and she's kind of like, "What are you doing here?" Like if she hasn't met this person before, if that has she is this something that happens regularly? Is this something that like is does she think this person's a burglar? Does she already know that this person is trying to like steal from, like it just seems like right away she kind of doesn't think there are stakes. And so it feels like it's a separate thing from this person who was breaking in earlier. It feels like, and then the evil Skylar piece feels like a separate piece again. So I would just encourage you to figure out how you can weave it together. One potential idea, which would which I would recommend to for you to get it on the page, but would probably really be in editing, is like the evil Skylar stuff is super interesting, and it feels like they talk about it and then we see it. And I wonder what would happen if the evil Skylar stuff is sort of woven in glimpses
Mhm.
in that dialogue scene. So you still get to tell, the multiple dimensions and all that stuff, but if there's like a visual happening in concert with their dialogue,
Mhm.
that also feels like that would sew the pieces together a little bit more and make it even more compelling. If I would totally be like drawn in if I'm seeing
Mhm.
the like, them talk about like these multiple dimensions and then seeing like, evil Scholar doing this, and like I think they're it might serve you, particularly because you're going to be operating on, a lower budget, blah blah
Mhm.
blah, to again be telling a compelling story with the journey that we go on. Is that making sense?
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. I'll do a couple more because I want to make sure we have time
Mhm.
for your questions. Let's see. I would encourage you to keep looking at how you protect the characters and how you protect the story. That's super
Mhm.
important, always in screenwriting, but especially in a short, because the characters who we're gonna want to go on a journey on, and even in 7 pages, we need a beginning, middle, and end that don't necessarily have to be in that order.
Mhm.
Cool. In terms of the dialogue, it feels, and it's tricky, because you have two people who don't know each other.
Mhm,
But it seems like a lot of the dialogue, even if you visually look it out on the page, is people asking questions of the two characters asking questions of each other.
mhm,
And it's hard, right? When the characters don't know each other, like of course they want to like know more.
mhm,
But I wonder what are ways that either in the stage directions or in mixing up just the dialogue use so that everything is not question answer, because that dynamic can get a little repetitive after a while,
mhm,
and maybe can feel a little exposition heavy versus like what what does Rose want, what does Skylar want, and how is it in conflict with each other?
mhm,
Right? Going back to like the screenwriting basics, which I know you have an MFA, so you already know all this stuff. But we always need to be reminded of these things anyway, right? This character wants something, this character wants something, and what they want is probably in conflict with each other.
mhm,
How do they go about getting the thing that they want?
mhm. Okay. They, I guess they both want to like, not I guess for sure, they both want to stay in that dimension where Camilla is alive.
Mhm.
And about like the note that they just met each other, I always struggled about this, so I'm gonna ask you.
Please
Um,
do.
so when Skylar comes into this dimension, she accidentally kicks Rose to her dimension, and
Mhm.
then Rose is watching her, what she's doing with Camilla and everything, and Rose is trying to come back to her dimension. Then she comes back and she's like, "What are you doing? Like you just stole my life." And yeah, that anger coming out. I don't know if it's coming out in the script. What do you think?
See, the complication, I did not quite see that. The
Mm-hmm,
complication is with with the current arrangement, we that I understand is the feature. What you described, I'm
yeah.
like, I could see how in the feature. And that goes back to the note that I was saying earlier
Mm-hmm,
of in a certain sense, and I know it's hard because I've been in that chair, in a
mm-hmm,
certain sense, you have to look at this as its own thing, as its own story, because we can't count on the history of the feature that people aren't seeing in this. We
mm-hmm,
can't count on that to tell this story, right? So like for example, you mentioned the aunt, there's no mention of an aunt in this 7 pages, like you
mm-hmm,
know what I mean, like all like you have to really look at it as its own thing because you're trying to tell this story in order to convince people to tell this story.
mm-hmm,
And so to that end, maybe then it serves you better for them to have met before,
mm-hmm,
right? For just for this, not I'm not talking about the feature, just for this, so that they come in already with history, so that you don't have to explain the history. They can
mm-hmm,
go right into conflict because they know you're going to try to bump me to another dimension, you're going to try to bump me to another dimension, and that is our conflict. That
mm-hmm,
also could potentially get you again a compelling story on the screen, dynamic story on the screen, could get you maybe a fight sequence. I don't know.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
That
I
could be
see
fun
that.
on screen, just
Mm-hmm.
gonna say, right? But right now, it feels like they're at the beginning of the story, but by the time the conflict kind of peters out really quickly without anything really changing for them, and in a 7 page short, I don't know that that serves you well. In a
Mm-hmm,
feature, when that's spread out over 80 pages, 90 pages, of course, right? But in this, it feels like it might serve you better for them to have, again, thinking it might be a different story, to have already had that initial whatever, so that when Rose comes in and sees Skylar, she knows what she's trying to do, and they can get right into how do they stay in their respective dimensions where they can be with Camilla.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally see that. I totally see them like fighting and trying to kick each other to the other dimension with the
Yes!
cameras they have.
I'm like, I want to see that movie.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, totally. And
Mm-hmm,
then that also will, give us a sense of like, oh, so her feature is going to have like really awesome fight sequences between character, like, and maybe in the feature they don't necessarily fight, but again, you just want to give people a taste of what the bigger thing is, even if you're slightly adjusting the characters, even if you're slightly adjusting the story, but just a taste of the themes of what the world what the visuals will look like. that's what the proof of concept is, which is why I asked you, what you were trying to do with it. Because if your proof of concept can do that, then you can, create an environment where you can get somebody on board for a feature.
Okay.
Yeah. I know you have to be thinking like a marketer even while you're writing the script. It's such a screenwriter said to me this weekend, 10% of our job is screenwriting, 90% of it is trying to convince people that we can write. So, and it feels like that is so accurate between pitches and pitch documents and writing essays and writing log lines. Like, so much of the work is showing people, trying to prove to people that we can write our little
Yeah.
10%. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
have the script and then like pitch document, written pitch, verbal pitch, and then the Bible and then other marketing documents, but just one script.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Believe me, I completely understand because I am living in that same exact world.
Mhm.
Awesome. So hopefully that was helpful.
Yes, definitely. It was great.
Awesome. What questions can I answer for you?
I think I already asked them like during your
Perfect.
yeah.
I love
Thank you
that you
so
did that.
much.
Oh, my absolute pleasure. Um, Yeah, no, my pleasure. I think you have like an exciting concept.
Mhm.
I think if you really look at making this its own story, I think it's gonna free you up to really like do some super interesting things with this theme that you're going for and with these
Mhm.
characters and this world that you've created. So I think it's gonna be really, really exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited for the 13th draft.
13 is a lucky number in my world,
Yeah,
so I'm like,
yes,
yeah.
for me too.
Awesome, cool. And so, in terms of your screenwriting career, what are you hoping to do?
Mm, I am hoping to get into the indie feature film
Awesome.
as well as TV shows because I've created a lot of like fantasy and sci-fi TV shows. So I want to start in the writer's room and slowly become a TV creator.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
Mm,
great. That's great. It's so funny how TV has become like a really great home for indie filmmakers. I mean, I like I
mhm.
said, I'm experiencing that myself. So I love that about where, sort of storytelling is on the small screen
Mhm.
these days. So, yay.
Right.
Awesome. Thanks so much again for sharing your script with me. I'm so excited that we got to chat.
Yeah,
And
thank you so much for joining in.
oh, my pleasure. 13. Let's go.
Let's go.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Seda. Have a great one.
Thank you. You too.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye.